hey oh no nail, hey oh hunnin', hey oh no nail, hey oh hunnin', hey oh no nail, no hunnin', hey oh no nail, no.
Home for the people where I live is not a house. It's all of what's around us, the air, the water, the land.
What happens when you no longer have access to your traditional food? We're talking about the continuance of us as a people.
With all the climate change evidence, it is absolutely here today. And what are we going to do?
Indigenous tribes are the ones that are going to have to take the forefront of these, tackling these issues, because we have so much at stake.
The whole intent was to bring together, and I think we had 34 tribes from across the country attend the symposium. So for them to go back, taking this information that they've learned, the processes, to go back and make assessments on their own tribal homelands to see what impacts climate's going to have on their resources. The Washoe tribe has been actively involved within the basin as their homelands for thousands of years. We thought this would be the perfect location because of the connectivity with the lake and the Washoe people.
When we're considering how we move forward in the face of climate change, I think it's really important not to ignore some of these smaller groups that have really intimate knowledge and local knowledge of relatively vast areas of land. Indigenous communities, a lot of times people group everyone together as being kind of this Native American race and Native American point of view, when in reality there's hundreds of different communities, federally recognized tribes.
And we all have very distinct cultures, we have distinct languages, but we're also facing a lot of the same issues. And so we're not going to be able to fight these things the same way, but we can get ideas from each other and inspire each other to be able to take similar actions within our communities.
To me, it's a manifestation of working towards environmental justice, to see what tribes are doing in terms of leading the way toward adaptation actions and mitigation mechanisms to deal with climate change.
Almost everywhere I go in Indian country, it's like a revitalization of culture, and we're getting back to a point that we should be, and we're able to start re-fulfilling some of our responsibilities.
My motivation is really driven by how we are going to leave this world a better place for the next generation, and to build resilience at a scale that we are safeguarding the places we live and love, and we are taking care of people. And for me, that means that we have no boundaries on how we work. So a lot of our work is with tribes, but also working across the border of Mexico and looking at how we knit these projects and ideas together so that we can have more power together than we can alone, and a much larger impact.
I'm really looking forward to networking, and there's different representatives from different tribes around all over the country. So I'm definitely interested in seeing what their impacts are and how they're combating different issues and sharing ours.
One of the most important parts of a meeting like this, of gathering, is that new relationships are made and stories are told. And those stories are the most important.
I have been getting more and more questions from our younger people asking for hope.
And so how do we kind of reintegrate this traditional knowledge as part of what we're doing and make it a part of our life again?
We forget who we are. We don't look at it, care for one another like we used to. If we all believe that way and work to that direction, the land will follow it.
So I think that our tribal nations are really at the forefront of a lot of these challenges and risks, and are bearing the brunt, the burden of these impacts.
Like for instance, my tribe, we have a problem with water, and we have a well that's not that good, and we're not eligible for any aid from the federal government because we're state recognized. So trying to get people in the political offices to listen to us is a little bit difficult because they don't want to mess with you because you're not federal.
The area that we live is a delta. It's the newest delta that was formed in the world. It's also the fastest disappearing delta in the world.
So we're learning from the various tribes. There are 6 different tribes in through this area, yet they have lost all their land. 99.9% of all their land's gone. They live on stilts in the water.
3 years ago it was the Tubbs fire. 2 years ago it was the ranch and the river fire. And then last year we had another fire. So our reality is that we live within wildfire territory.
So our chokecherry harvest has been pretty low. And a lot of people, you know, elders especially, like to harvest them, and they haven't been able to the past couple of years.
So I'm part of the Yupik Nation as well as the Alutiiq. We depend on the land, we subsist, we depend on the fish to return. Like, that's our tradition, that's our culture, that's who we are. Seeing all these different changes happening to them, we're worried about food security.
The Lummi Nation depends on shellfish for subsistence and ceremonial harvest, and so this population decline as well as this increasing health threat is really threatening their food availability and their livelihood.
Now we're talking about the loss of words that we're not using anymore because we're not catching those fish anymore. We're not eating those fish. We're not using those words. We're not having coming of age dances around those fish anymore because a lot of our coming of age things are directly related to gathering seasons. And when those gathering seasons change, your dances change, your language changes, your culture changes. So what happens when salmon people become acorn people?
As a young person, for me, I'm stuck in between the two worlds. I'm stuck into still continuing our traditional life ways, but also having to be modern, contemporary, you know. A lot of our youth are, you know, taking their lives because they don't understand who they are.
And one of our biggest issues that we're having is the mental health of our children, because our children are losing hope. They're seeing climate change, they're getting bombarded by it through the news, and they're trying to figure out ways to deal with it.
So that's why for me, as a young Numa person, I always want to make sure that they're okay. Because this is a really big world with a lot of issues that we all have to face, you know, every day.
Well, I hope that when people leave here, they realize that they're not alone and that there's a whole network of people who are thinking about these concepts, who are working on strategies to use in their community, that we're all kind of working through these same challenges and that you're not isolated in that effort.
And so one of my interests is rather than focus on that vulnerability, but to more focus on that resilience and what we can learn from Indigenous communities to help support the adaptation of all of our lands and ecosystems and the water resources and other resources that we all depend on. I really do just go back to our legends and traditions and our cultural values and ethics that really connect us to this landscape, and go back to knowing that it's going to be okay as long as we plan, as long as we kind of educate each other on what some of those ethics that come from our language and cultural practices can mean for the future. And
everybody is concerned about how we get through this. And so the ideas that we're talking about and the ideas that we're sharing on how to mitigate and how to adapt, a lot of these tribes are going to take back. And they're going to add it into their environmental plans. They're going to add it into their emergency response plans, their climate change plans.
So I think it's really important that not only just the tribes that are here at this conference, but a lot of the tribes that are not here, is to understand what the agencies do for us and what we can do for them. We're at this time now that we need to start collaborating a lot more with these agencies.
I'm hoping to be that person to speak to younger generations.
It's just amazing to be around these amazing, strong Indigenous people.
We're having a gathering, and what I'll share from here is that the stories that I heard, especially how tribes are taking the initiative to make different relationships that will either restore the land or ecosystems.
I'm looking forward to working with some of the people here and trying to bring them to my community, I guess, so that our community can recognize that like our relatives are working on these issues and that it's not a choice, it's our responsibility to work on these issues as well.
And what I took away from the time that I have been here at the symposium is that we have to take a break, get in a circle and pray, chant, sing songs, and just kind of reaffirm why we're here and why we continue to do this work addressing climate impacts, climate change. There is hope in these gatherings, and love and praying and smudging, blessing. It's amazing. This is what the indigenous way is, the tribal way.